prosperity, people, and planet. How do we bring the planet and people and prosperity together into a framework that can understand how those pieces connect? So it's really about systems thinking, recognizing that the economy is embedded within society, which is embedded within the rest of nature, and making sure we understand it's not humans versus nature or something separate from nature. It's humans embedded in and part of the rest of nature. So I think that changing worldview is needed really to do a better job with economics and social science in general, and also the biophysical world. So we can't understand this complex system that we're living in the Anthropocene, this new geologic epoch that recognizes how interconnected and how much impact humans are really having already on the rest of the world. So if we want to create a sustainable, prosperity, a sustainable well-being future, we have to better understand those connections. But I think we also have to better understand why we're stuck. I think several of the other speakers have mentioned that, we've known about these issues and problems for decades now, and we've known about the solutions as well, but we haven't made much progress. So what's holding us back? And one of the perspectives that we're taking on this is that we need to think of it more as an addiction. We're locked into the current system because of the positive feedback loops and the way the system is structured. And if we're ever going to break out of that addiction, it's going to take more than just recognizing the problem, and understanding it in more and more detail, which is what we tend to do as scientists. So, we understand the problem, but getting behavior to change, I think, is a different matter. As we learn from, what works at the individual scale to overcome addictions, simply pointing out the problem doesn't really help. So how do you what's the therapy at the societal scale? And by analogy with some things that work at the individual scale, we think a major part of that is developing a shared vision of the kind of world that we really want. We haven't really done that. That really should be the essence of a democratic society, is building the shared vision of the world that we want. And we've come up with we look at some techniques that might work for that. This idea of scenario planning, looking at alternative futures, getting people to interact around those alternative futures and reveal their preferences, have discussions around that, do surveys and things like that. So there's that whole sort of body of things, understanding the world as a complex system, trying to understand what's blocking us, trying to develop societal therapy that could help us overcome these problems. And move to a sustainable well-being or prosperity future, and also understanding what that means. I think that's part of that shared vision exercise. We know that prosperity, well-being, and there are a lot of synonyms, I think, around that quality of life. They're dependent on much more than simply consumption of goods and services, and GDP growth often has negative side effects that actually affect well-being. So there's a lot more research we can bring to bear on what is well-being and prosperity, and then how do we display that? How do we get that idea out into a public discourse and build a shared vision of that kind of world that we really want?